Debt is not the problem. Using it like you are poor is the problem. There is one number that separates the people who drown in debt from the people who get rich off it. And here's the strange part. It is not the size of the loan, and it is not the interest rate. Two people can take out the exact same loan at the exact same rate on the exact same day, and one of them ends up buried while the other ends up richer than when they started. Same loan, same interest rate, opposite result. The difference is one number. Forget everything you've been told about debt for a second. At its core, a loan is nothing more complicated than renting money. You borrow a sum, you pay a fee for the time you hold it, and you give it back. That fee is the interest rate. That is the rent. So the only question that actually matters is this. When you take that rented money and put it to work, does it earn more than the rent costs? If the money you borrowed earns 7% and the rent on it is 4%, you keep the difference, 3%, on money that was never yours. That gap has a name. It is called the spread, and the spread is the entire game. Here's where it gets interesting. Your return on your own money equals the spread multiplied by how many dollars you control for every dollar of your own that you put in. The spread is one part. The leverage, how many borrowed dollars you stack on top of yours, is the other. Multiply them together and you get the only number that matters, the return on your own cash. A rich person does not see a loan and think, how do I pay this back as fast as possible? They see a loan and think, what is the spread and how many dollars can I control with it? Let us start with one of the oldest and most accessible strategies. It's called trade credit, and almost every product business on earth runs on it. Say you want to sell pens. The textbook version is that you buy a container of pens with your own cash, ship them, and sell them. But your own money is tied up in inventory for months. The better version is that you never pay for the pens up front. Manufacturers, especially overseas, often offer payment terms such as net 30, net 60, or net 90. You receive the inventory now and pay 30, 60, or 90 days later. They're effectively lending you the product. Now run the number. You sell the pens before the bill is due, you collect the money from your customers, pay the factory, and keep the difference. How much of your own cash did you need? Zero. That's why selling is one of the most valuable skills in business. The seller often doesn't need money, they need favorable payment terms. You don't need a factory overseas to use this idea. Anyone who has sold something before paying for it has used trade credit. A supplier giving you 30 days to pay, a customer deposit funding a project before expenses, or a 0% introductory credit card floating inventory all use the same mechanism. Now consider real estate. Suppose you find a property for $500,000 that needs work. You put 20% down, or $100,000, and borrow the remaining $400,000. Then you spend another $50,000 renovating it. Your total cash invested is $150,000. After the renovation, the property is worth $700,000. You refinance at 80% of the new value, giving you a new loan of $560,000. You pay off the original $400,000 mortgage and receive $160,000 in cash. Many people would say your profit is $110,000 after subtracting renovation costs, but that misses the point. You invested $150,000 and pulled out $160,000. Every dollar you originally invested came back to you with extra cash while you still own a $700,000 property with roughly $140,000 in equity. Run the number. How much of your own cash remains invested? Zero. That's why investors love this strategy. The goal is not simply making a profit. The goal is recycling your capital while continuing to own the asset. There are important limitations. The new mortgage is larger, which means higher monthly payments. Refinancing also comes with closing costs, often between 2 and 5%. The strategy only works if the property generates enough rental income to comfortably cover the larger payment and all other expenses. The difficult part isn't refinancing, it's finding a property that still produces positive cash flow after everything is included. Now look at a strategy often associated with billionaires. It works through 3 simple steps: buy, borrow, and hold. First, buy appreciating assets like stocks, businesses, or real estate. As long as those assets aren't sold, the gains generally remain unrealized, meaning no capital gains tax is triggered. Instead of selling, wealthy investors often borrow against those assets using securities-backed lines of credit. The portfolio serves as collateral while the bank provides cash. If the investments continue growing faster than the borrowing cost, the spread stays positive while the assets remain intact. Selling would trigger capital gains taxes that can approach 23.8% at the highest federal long-term rate, including the investment income surcharge. Borrowing at around 6% instead of realizing gains can therefore preserve far more wealth. There's an important risk. The lender doesn't loan the full value of the portfolio. If the market falls and the collateral loses value, the lender can demand additional collateral or force the sale of assets. That's known as a margin call. Leverage amplifies outcomes in both directions. A positive spread becomes more profitable, a negative spread becomes more destructive. Short selling demonstrates this danger. Instead of borrowing money, you borrow shares, sell them immediately, and hope to buy them back later at a lower price. When you buy a stock, the maximum loss is what you invested. When you short a stock, losses have no theoretical limit because the stock price can continue rising indefinitely while you're still obligated to buy back the shares. That's leverage working against you. Now return to one of the most practical ideas. Many balance transfer credit cards offer 0% interest for 18 to 21 months, sometimes even longer. Most charge an upfront transfer fee of around 3 to 5%. Run the number. You're effectively renting money for roughly 3% over nearly 2 years. If what you do with that money earns more than the total borrowing cost, you keep the spread. The simplest use is moving expensive debt. Replacing a 24% credit card balance with a 0% balance transfer while paying only a small transfer fee dramatically improves the spread. You're not chasing investment returns. You're eliminating a very expensive interest rate. It's the exact same principle as trade credit. Borrow cheaply, deploy the capital efficiently, and keep the difference. Finally, focus on the cost of money. Most people obsess over increasing returns. Wealthy investors spend just as much time reducing borrowing costs because every percentage point saved goes directly into the spread. Your credit score is one of the biggest factors determining what your money costs. The difference between an average score and an excellent one can change the interest rate on mortgages, car loans, business loans, and other financing by several percentage points. Over decades, those savings can compound into tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. The advantage isn't access to a secret bank, it's access to cheaper money. So pull everything together. Debt is rented money. The only question that matters is whether what you do with that money earns more than the rent you pay for it. For every dollar of your own money you invest, ask 2 questions. How many dollars are you controlling? And do those dollars earn more than they cost? That's the number. Whether someone is borrowing against a billion-dollar portfolio or using a balance transfer to eliminate high-interest debt, the math is exactly the same, only the scale changes. Get that inequality on the right side, and debt stops being something that owns you. It becomes a tool that works for you. The poor focus on paying debt off as quickly as possible. The rich focus on the spread and on how many dollars they can control. Same loans, same interest rates, one number.